Class 10, ACI 11, Class 10. You know, this is the last class of ACI 11, but it's really the beginning. And we're going to go right into a contemplation. The contemplation on the ultimate and immediate pains of selfishness. If you fail to practice perfectly this exchange of your own happiness with the suffering of others, you will never reach that enlightenment that even here in the cycle of life, there is no happiness. Forget the goals of the world beyond. Even in this life, none of the things you hope to achieve will come about. Those whose duty it is to serve you will do none of their work, and those masters you serve will never pay. So last week we were talking about 2 ways to get to this. Actually, just to review, remember we're in the perfection of concentration. We're in the chapter on meditation. And really, Master Shantideva says nothing about how to meditate in terms of, well, he does actually. He tells us how to meditate ultimately, but he doesn't tell us how to meditate physically. You know, he does talk about the conducive conditions to meditation in a way. You know, like he recommends having that mindset of all day shamatha, all day samadhi, but really encouraging us to go on retreat and doing both, right? Getting to that state of stillness within our own hearts and in our own minds that we can have that focused attention throughout our day, but also to go into retreat, into a forest or a cave, or he has some beautiful lyrical explanations of that. But then he really just goes right into what you should meditate on, as opposed to saying your spine should be straight, your breath, you know, nothing technical, right? So we've been talking about what to meditate on as taught by Master Shantideva, as meditate on things that will cultivate your bodhicitta. And he gave us 2 specific methods. One was the exchanging, well, it wasn't really exchanging, it was there were 2 last time, right? Do you remember this, Leonardo? He asked us to do the thing where you expand your boundary, like to look after others, right? As if you would look after yourself. And then there were all those arguments, no, there's too many of you, I can't possibly look after all of you, and et cetera, et cetera. And he gave us very logical and compelling arguments for why that's a silly argument, and that it's something that we choose. It's actually arbitrary because things aren't fixed out there the way that they appear, right? And then he did the more radical thing where, this was last week, and the radical thing was that we should find, part of that argument of, you know, I can't possibly look after everyone else because there's too many of them. The secondary argument was, well, I can't actually feel your pain. Like, I cut my fingers today in deinstalling an installation. You can't feel the pain, right? You can see the cuts, but you can't feel the pain. Or if you bumped your knee, I don't bruise, right? So the secondary argument was that it's too removed. I can't feel your pain. And the argument, the logical conclusion that Master Shantideva gave us was that that too is a choice. And you can choose to not tolerate your own pain, right? Or you can choose to tolerate it. You can also choose to not tolerate the pain in someone else. Wherever you see pain, you can find it as intolerable to yourself as if it were your own pain. And that's a choice. And that's where he wanted us to get to. And he wanted us to get to being as happy for someone else's happiness as much as it is your own happiness. Because it is your own happiness, actually. It is your own pain, even if you can't feel it, right? So that's where we got to last week. So where we're starting off right now is Gyaltsabje's commentary, and this little contemplation we just did was talking about the problems that will come to us if we don't pursue those contemplations, if we're not working on cultivating bodhicitta. And what we just talked about in this verse, believe it or not, because it's so poetic, right? You just kind of get lost in the lyricalness of it. He was just telling us specifically about the problems that you cannot see, problems that will come to you if you don't practice exchanging yourself and others, that you cannot see. And he actually kind of mentioned it. So this is often how Buddhist arguments are given. Like, if there's going to be a problem coming to you, it's usually in two categories: those that you can see and those that you can't see. Mm-hmm. Those that are obvious and those that you really need a commentary to help you unpack it. Mm-hmm. And really it's the second. It's the ones that you need a little bit of direction because we're so unaware. Those are the ones that we really do want to learn about. The obvious ones are obvious. You know, we can keep banging our head against that wall until we stop, but we'll still know the wall is there, right? It's the ones that we don't know that we really have to be careful of. But Master Shantideva says both. So this unseen problem, you will never reach that enlightenment, and even here in the cycle of life, there is no happiness. Forget the goals of the world beyond. Beyond, by the way, is a cinnamon. I always say synonyms, and you know what I'm trying to say. Not the spice that you put into eggnog, okay, or chai. The other one, thing that sounds like. But it's very much gone beyond is another way of describing nirvana, or gone beyond your kleshas, right? So what he's saying is that you won't even, never mind nirvana and enlightenment, you won't even gain the goals that you want in this life. And Geshe-la, Holy Geshe Michael, actually unpacks this further, saying the first kind of unseen problem is that you won't make any spiritual progress, which is exactly what Gyaltsabje said there, right? But Geshe Michael unpacks this to give us three very real examples of types of practitioners that he has had experience with, and he finds this very sad when he sees these three types of practitioners because they epitomize the result of this unseen obstacle. They actually embody the result of this unseen result. And the first of the three are people who just cannot meet their teachers, or they cannot, and actually, because they cannot meet their teachers and they cannot get the teachings. And they may be sitting right beside you, like they're in class, they're hearing the blah blah, they're reading the stuff, they're reciting their prayers perfectly, but it's just bouncing off, or they just do not ever get that heart connection with a teacher. And that's the one thing that Geshe-la has seen. The second thing is he calls them sad middle-aged practitioners, where they've been practicing for a while. Maybe they have a teacher, maybe they have come to the teachings, and they're doing their retreats, they're doing their practice, but they're all coming to him saying, nothing's happening. I'm not getting any of the results that I've been promised here, and Geshe-la says that is the result of this type of obstacle. It's the result of not having that heart opening, and it will manifest in that way. And that's sad, especially if you're really, going through all the motions, or you think you are, and you've been at it for decades maybe, and nothing's happening, or nothing much is happening. That's really sad. The third type of outcome, third type of person, are the dead ones. They've met a teacher, they've gone to teachings, they haven't, done too much about it, and they've died before they could get anywhere. Yeah, he says the people I've met, the dead ones. Yeah. And all three are experiencing this unseen obstacle. So, Geshe also says the opposite is true. Um, if you're ever feeling a little dissatisfied with where you are spiritually, or you're not sure if you've met your teacher, or you're not, maybe you're even thinking that Dharma doesn't quite work. Maybe I should try cleansing. You know, it's like, maybe Dharma doesn't quite work, right? Like if you're ever thinking that, it's not that you need to try something else. It means that you are still cherishing yourself more than others. And if you try to work on that even a little, if any of you here were here for Lama Roger Lamilan's talk on Friday night, they talked about one of the most incredible realizations they had in 3-year retreat was that if they could have 1% of change in attitude, in change in perception, just 1%, it was huge. And they were giving the example of having a tree felled. They live in the middle of a forest, and having a tree felled on their property, and how this expert came, and really all he did was tap in certain strategic points along the base of the tree, and it was like just that last 1%, and the tree just perfectly fell where it needed to go. And like that, they were saying that really it's not about the big, hitting your ultimate enlightenment after 30 days in retreat or even 3 years in retreat, although you could, but that's not what they're saying. They say go for a 1% change from the mind that you went in with. And then the results are like that little on the tree. It will just bring the whole samsaric experience down. And that's what Geshe is saying here too. It's like, just open your heart 1%. Just open it 1%, and it will be incredible. Incredible things will start to happen to you in your life. And those of you who already have know what I'm talking about. And it's exactly the way that you are going to get to enlightenment. So, you know how Master Shantideva all along has had, he'll say something profound, and then there will be but, and so this argument comes up that, no, wait a minute, Master Shantideva, I have been kind to others. I have been opening my heart up to others. You have no idea how much I love others, and I'm still not seeing tantric deities in my room. It's just not happening. And it's okay. I can live with that. And Master Shantideva at this point gets wrathful on our asses. And he says there's absolutely no way that you could be opening your heart even just a little if you're not having incredible experiences. That therein lies the proof. So it's not that you've tried. It's not that you've done enough and you're okay with not seeing the results. It's that you really haven't, and that is the proof. So it's encouragement for us to really, really work on this bodhicitta, because he says if you do, and that was in the verse too, even if you work on it a little, you will start seeing results, even the nominal results that you want in this life. The better spouse, the better job, the better living conditions, the opportunities, all of these things will be a direct result of cherishing yourself less and cherishing others more. So everything you dreamed of financially, materially, samsarically. So he says it doesn't even matter if you don't want to get enlightened. You still have to practice this method. And then Geshe says, actually, you do still have to practice the method. Guess what? You do. And you will be on a one-way ticket, So it's the absolute best thing you could do for yourself. Not only ultimately, but nominally, even to see results in this life. Which is kind of good news, right? Because sometimes it feels like we're really purifying stuff from eons ago, from people that we didn't even know we were, and that this enlightenment thing seems so far. Like sometimes it feels like that, and that's not the point. The point is that even in this life, you will be happier. You will see results, and that's pretty cool, right? So again, this whole being kind to others, right? I mean, ultimately, karmically, whatever you know about karma and emptiness, that is going to be the result of abundance in this life, right? Abundance on all levels, being kind to others. Like that's kind of the base of it. And it's not something that you can prove in this moment. But if you do study karma and you understand emptiness, then it will become clear where it's coming from. Leonardo, I'm just going to ask you to angle that foot away or to bend it. Just, thank you.
I'm sorry.
No. It's just since we're talking about karma.
I'm sorry. You know what? Sorry, I think I remember now why.
It's okay to stretch. You just want to stretch in another direction.
Thank you.
By the way, karma is not an excuse that Buddhists made up to explain the world. Okay? It really does work, and the more you study it, the more you will see all of you have been coming to karma workshops, right? You've been tracking it, and you see that the causes lead to results, and it's trackable, Unfortunately, the time gap is not measurable in a finite sense yet. And I say yet because Buddhas, of course, who can see all time and place, for them, they could say, yeah, I know exactly what you're supposed to do and when, but you gotta figure that one out for yourself. I'll show you exactly how to figure it out, but the doing, yeah. So it's, but it's true, right? We're not culturally educated in this way. We don't say, oh man, I didn't get that promotion because I wasn't kind enough to others. And it's not even the enough. It was like, that was a ripening. If I really, really wanted that promotion and I didn't get it, it's not because I wasn't good enough or I didn't say the right things. It's because the karma wasn't in place for me to get it. What kind of karma do I need? I need to be kinder to others. So I don't want you to think that it's your fault or anything. That's not what I'm saying, because it can be easily misheard in that way. You're not kind enough, right? That's not it. It's just that everything that isn't going right in our lives is the ripening of us having not been kind enough in the past and not being aware of it. So now with awareness, we can be more dedicatedly kind as much as possible. And again, it's all within the realm of karma and what we're capable of in the moment. So we want to cultivate the best field within which to practice this. Or the minute we catch ourselves not, then knowing how to purify that, right? So those are just the common sense workings of karma. But Geshe-la is saying something really radical here. Like he is bringing this all down to this simple thing. And, even when we were doing the karma workshops, because I was trying to correlate it directly to wealth, to health, and to love, and we got very, very specific. But really, in all of them, you would get all of them with this. And this is, understanding karma and emptiness and understanding and practicing bodhicitta is the magic formula. There's no big secret. But the reason in the workshops we dissect it to the different meditations and stuff is that often it helps just to have some tools to draw on, because sometimes this is so profound and simple that we miss it, that we forget, that it's easy to say, hard to do, right? So, if we didn't have teachings like this, we would never ever guess that tiny little incidents like pouring tea for ourselves before we pour it for somebody else, or not being aware of how it is to properly sit in class, or not being, it's like that one thing is not going to be your downfall. It's not. But when you have little things like that and you're not even realizing it, you're not realizing that that's all what results in that big disappointment you had today, or that really unfortunate experience you had with that person yesterday, or whatever. Like we don't see it in those terms, but and remember, it's not the big ups that we really. I mean, those are pretty obvious, right? It's the little things that we don't. They're so unconscious, or they're so normal. It's normal behavior, right? That so-called normal behavior. So see, we're trying to be really abnormal here. We're not trying. We're trying to buck the system. We're trying to not be sheep. We're trying to be very, very radical. And this kindness thing is very, very radical. When you're sitting in a Dharma class, it sounds like, well, of course. But when you're operating out there in the real world, it's very, very radical. So these are the unseen problems. Cherishing others before yourself is the secret, the antidote, the thing to make sure that it will all work out for you. And then the other argument that comes up, especially if you're an aspiring Dharma student, is, but isn't self-cherishing, like isn't self-interest self-cherishing? Like, isn't, if I'm only doing this, if I'm only pouring your tea first, because I know there's something in it for me, isn't that somehow wrong? Like, isn't that somehow kind of twisted? And that's actually a very common argument that will come up if you're starting to tell people, like if you're sharing this types of teachings with friends, or with people who are wondering what you're up to. It can be a very, you might hear it often, and it's not wrong, but the clarification is always what His Holiness the Dalai Lama says. You do need to have enlightened self-interest. You do need to, and actually, if you know your Bodhisattva vow, and if you know what a Bodhisattva motivation is, bodhicitta means I will get to my enlightenment so that I can take you. Because I can't take you there until I get there first. Like, you cannot be a helper until you have helped yourself. So that is the ultimate. You have to reach paradise yourself so that you can teach others how to get there. And the best thing that you can do for others happens to be the best thing you can do for yourself, which is to get to enlightenment. So that's where there is a difference between self-cherishing and self-interest. Ignorant self-interest is self-cherishing, and we do have to be careful, because remember I said in previous classes too, we have to be careful about, especially when it comes to capacity. Oh, I don't have the capacity. I'm too tired. I don't have the capacity for that. So it's better that I don't go at all. It's better that I don't, commit to it all, because, the teacher said in class that it's better to do that than to commit and not show up. And it is true. It is true. You must understand your capacity, and you must not overextend yourself if you do truly, within the best of your estimation, know that you're at your capacity. But as Geshe-la says, we are capable of much more than we give ourselves credit for, and we can conveniently use that excuse for anything we want. So we have to be careful that yes, when you are definitely tapped out, you must take a rest, you must. But we also have to be very, very careful about not using our Dharma as a convenient excuse for actually not cherishing others, right? So it's a tricky place to be. The Sakya Pandita, very famous sage in our lineage in the 1200s, said the best way to get bliss is to give away your small happinesses. So again, it's not this huge, grandiose acts that you need to be doing, right? It's the little things. I love that homework assignment. It wasn't a homework question, it was a homework assignment from several classes ago that said, try to put some small happiness into the mind of another and just watch what happens. Whatever happiness you might want for yourself, see if you can give it away and just watch what happens. And it's kind of a cool practice. I don't do that one often enough. I keep repeating it because I must do it. But I think I also said before that, you know, an easy way to do it if you're in a work situation is to give praise to others, you know, to make sure that people are recognized for what they're doing, and you don't have to I mean, it doesn't cost you anything, right? Like even if you help them do the thing that they did, praise them, like give the happiness to them. And I will tell you, it'll be okay if you're feeling really, I don't know, if you've had enough sleep and you've had enough to eat and you're feeling like, okay, I'm going to go do this. But watch your mind when you haven't quite prepped yourself to do it, to see how naturally it comes. Because I got to tell you, that little demon inside that wants to go, but what about me? What about me? I did that. How come you're praising them? You know, is going to rear its ugly little head. And you really want to, yeah, that's a demon. But so when you have the capacity, when you're able to, as much as possible, consciously do it, and then when you have those ripenings, either you'll notice right away that it's a ripening, or it won't be nearly as loud as they normally are. Okay, the next contemplation is called Let the Fire Go. So let's get into Contemplation 30. This is a famous one. Every single harm that comes in this entire world, every fear that comes, and so too every pain that ever comes from grasping to myself. What use for me then is this, the single greatest demon? Until the day that you give up your very self, you'll not be able to stop the suffering. Until the day that you let go of fire, you will not be able to stop your hand from burning. This is actually one of my favorite Master Shanti. I never remember the whole, what I just read you, but I always remember. This is the one punchline I do remember. I'm really bad at punchlines, but Master Shantideva to me is famous for the teaching on let go of the coal. We are so holding on to the coal that burns us, and we're going, ow, 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 ow. And he's saying, please just let go of the coal. And we're like, no, it's my coal, you know? So the coal in this instance is self-cherishing. And these are now the problems that you can see, okay? And basically in that stanza, he's saying that every single pain in the world, physical or mental, is caused by this ignorant self-cherishing, this holding on to this coal. And you know, it's burning you. Yeah. So it's interesting. Geshe-la takes a moment here to interject a little observation that Buddhism, generally speaking, not all, but Buddhism, generally speaking, does not appear to be very socially concerned. They're not very activist in the world, if you think about it. They're not running soup kitchens. They're not running shelters on a regular basis the way some other religions are, right? And if you really, 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 really understand karma and emptiness, and the whole Buddhist sort of goal is to really, really change our own hearts and our own minds, because everything, including anyone needing a soup kitchen or a shelter, is coming from us and not at us, right? So we're really working hard to change our own minds. But what Geshe-la was saying, and His Holiness has also pointed out, that it is a weakness in the outward Buddhist practice to not be more socially active, and that really, if you were a strong practitioner, you would be doing both. You would be working on your mind, and you would be helping in the soup kitchen, or clothing the cold and poor, or whatever. And it would be very, very suspicious if you were saying, "Oh no, I can't possibly go help in the soup kitchen because I have to go meditate. I'm going to solve all the world's problems on my cushion." Quite frankly, if you were really truly going to do what Lord Buddha did under that Bodhi tree, I am not getting up until I am enlightened, and you do it, then yes, you will be the most incredible gift for the universe. But it's very suspicious if you're using that as an excuse to not help. And so really you should do both. But if you truly understand karma and emptiness, that meditation is going to be, we must change our minds. We must change our core beliefs, right? About that tell us that things are exactly fixed the way they are. We have to, it has to be more than just an intellectual knowledge. It has to be really, we have to see emptiness directly, and we have to like get to that point where we are completely beyond our kleshas, completely beyond our mental afflictions, right? And in order to get there, does require that you meditate very well. So it is important, but as Geshe-la wants to point out, especially because we're on the chapter on bodhicitta within the context of meditation, you can't have, like, you need both. You do need both. So if you don't let go of that burning coal, you won't ever be able to stop the pain that it gives you. And the burning coal is a metaphor for our tendency to take care of ourselves first. So this tendency to cherish ourselves is what Master Shantideva is calling the greatest devil in the world. It's really interesting. This whole way of thinking about exchanging ourselves and others does require a pliable mind. It does require flexibility of our heart. And Geshe-la says that as we physically age in this human cycle that we have incarnated into, our brains start to ossify. They start to get hard. So while you have the opportunity, you have to make that, what my lamas call that 1% change, right? Because if you don't, things will harden. Things will like they'll get stagnant, and it'll be much harder to make that shift when you're so entrenched in seeing the world as fixed and you're so grasping to yourself. So before you get too old, switch it around to taking care of others, and it will make your life extremely happy. Okay, let's do another contemplation. This is called the Master and the Servant. It is something very wrong to look with eyes belonging to another and work for only my own goals. It is wrong as well to look with eyes working for them and to do something that's not right. Therefore, I should make all other people first priority, and anything that I ever find upon my person, I should take away from me and seek some way to make a use of it for other people. By the way, Geshe-la says that there will come a time when you will have a direct perception of bodhicitta, just like you have a direct perception of emptiness. Um, I've been told it happens just before, or it happens almost simultaneous too, but it is as dramatic. You are forever changed, and you will never, ever, ever um, lose sight of what that felt like. And it will be this feeling, this distinct knowledge that you will spend the rest of your lives helping other people. It'll just be this driving, burning force. And until that day that it becomes this beacon of love, Geshe-la says, let's just pretend. Yeah. Pretend to have this attitude. Imagine what it would be like to have this. And this stanza here is interesting because, you know, it says it's wrong to look with eyes belonging to another. It's wrong to look after my own goals. What this is implying is that as bodhisattvas, and all of you who have bodhisattva vows, I don't know if you read the fine print, but when you commit to being a bodhisattva, you basically give yourself over. You are now in service to everyone else and the world. And so it's really talking about getting very, very clear on that agreement that we've all made as bodhisattvas, and how really we don't own anything, including our own eyes, or our own body, or our own time in that way. All of this is in service of others, and it's a rather extreme, if you read it literally, it's a rather extreme stanza, but it really is about dedicating the rest of your life for others, every waking moment, even the eyes that you're seeing with, anything that you have, you want to, like you're just borrowing stuff until someone else needs it, you know? And it's an attitude, of course, right? I mean, all of this. Remember, the perfection of giving is not that you give every single thing you have away. And even last class, I think it was, or is it this class, where, you know, you have to, it's not going to serve anyone to give everything away, including your clothes, and to walk around the world, the streets of Vancouver naked. Because you're probably going to offend more people than you're going to help, and it's just not going to serve anybody, right? So, you know, we have to be, it's the attitude that all of this is for you, right? Like, from your heart, you're thinking that. And you're dedicating everything to others. A bodhisattva does have to cultivate this attitude of not owning any stuff. Like, and in a way, it's kind of clever because it really trains you to not be so attached, right? Remember that hot coal was this grasping, this self-cherishing? Well, if I don't own anything anyways, and I'm just looking after stuff, you know, for others, or using things temporarily so that I can be of better service to others, it's a whole different attitude towards anything, towards everything. So we pretend to be a bodhisattva. We pretend to act like this because we've already promised that we will. It's kind of an interesting attitude to try on the next time you feel you don't have time for something. Like somebody asks you for your time and you really don't want to give it to them. Remember, it's actually their time already. And how are you going to best serve that agreement? Now, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that you accept every single invitation. It certainly doesn't mean that. But just try it on for your own heart the next time that happens. Because I know personally, time is one of the hardest things for me to give away sometimes. Because it's, well, I have a tendency to fill my time with very many things. So if I hit this place where I need to like check out for a while, and then I get asked for one more thing, sometimes I really don't want to do it. But then if I think, wait, right now is actually a really beautiful practice for me because I'm serving my parents a lot more than I have ever had the privilege of doing. I'm living with them right now, so it makes it a lot easier. But I'm looking at this as my time to serve them, and it's a whole different way of. Seriously, I used to be really annoyed when my mom would ask for my time. It was this horrible, horrible, horrible sort of rising up. And now when she asks, I'm thinking, thank you for asking me. Like, I need to do this, And if she didn't need me, I wouldn't be able to do this. And she actually doesn't need me. She really doesn't. It's simply for my benefit. But, to be able to approach it in that way is so much more rewarding, even on the initial get-go, than never mind, the karmic implications or ramifications, right? So just try it on the next time someone asks you for, especially your time. Okay. I'm going to move right on. We're going to get now into what I normally think of as exchanging self and others, which is Dakshin Yamje. And we've taught Dakshin Yamje meditations here quite a bit. Actually, who is a master at teaching this is Christine. So you guys should go and beg her to teach you some Dakshin Yamje meditations because she's brilliant at it. But I'm going to get into this is the chapter. This is the place in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life where this is explained. And I'm going to warn you, it's very schizophrenic. It's very confusing. So I will do my best to explain this in the half hour that we have left. But let's just go straight into a quick contemplation to exchange yourself and others. Make those who are inferior to you and so on be yourself. Make yourself now none other than the others. Practice this with the state of mind that's free of ideas, the feelings of jealousy, competitiveness, and pride. So within that gem of a verse was actually contained the three ways that we actually look at people. And when I first heard this, I thought, I don't look at people that way. But if we really, really investigate how we look at others, it kind of separates into this. Just like, I don't know if you guys have read some of Geshe-la's teachings on yoga, but he's always said that in any yoga class, you'll get three people. One who loves you, one who can't stand you, and one who doesn't care one way or the other. And that's usually the way any room or any exposure will break down into. You're in the workplace. You can pretty much divide it. A third of the people absolutely adore you. A third of the people really don't like you or are kind of nasty to you. And a third of the people are really neutral, So that's one way to dissect things. Here's an interesting way that we dissect people we meet. And I gotta tell you, this was not comfortable the first time I heard it, but if you really, really look at it, it's not only it's spot on. When you meet people, you are automatically dividing, just like those three in a room, our minds automatically divide people into three. One, if we think that they are higher than us, we're jealous. If we think we're on the same level as them, we get competitive. And if we think that they're lower than us, then we get pride. So, given those three places that we start from, and you know what, don't think of it as when I heard those, I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm not jealous of, I don't really feel like I'm stewing in green-eyed monster stuff, right? But if you think about it, when you do meet somebody who's better than you, you kind of get this, gee, I wish I had that. I wish I could do that. Or, God, it'd be so great to be able to do that. So, we're thinking of it in a complimentary way, but we really wish that we could have that for ourselves. So it is a form of jealousy, And the same thing about the competitiveness thing. You may not think you have it with someone, but if you think they're on the same level, just wait till they do something, I don't know, like a perfect backbend. You're going to want to do a perfect backbend too, because you know you can, and it's really weird. And then if someone's lesser than you for some reason, you kind of like know in your heart you know more than they do, or that you can do things better, or what. It's really weird. So, but those are the three places that you start from, and with exchanging self and others, you switch places. So if you are in the company of someone who you think is superior to you, you switch places with them and you see you through their eyes. So, and you throw everything back at you. See, this is where it gets schizophrenic. It gets really confusing into who's who and who's saying what to who. This is the part where I know when Karen Husek and I first taught this, we thought we'd have sock puppets. And I still don't have them, so I still can't remember who's who. But so I'm gonna just read you Geshe Michael's version of this, because I get really confused about it. Okay, so how does it? So Geshe Michael Roach is talking about himself. He refers to himself and a woman in class named Tessie. So he says this jealousy thing. Like that's when you think someone is higher than you. So now he has switched places with Tessie, anyways, how does it feel Michael Roach, when Tessie sits over there and says he's better than me? How does it feel? Basically what it is that you're putting your mental afflictions into the other person. You've put your body into the other person, you've put your mental afflictions into the other person, and they're looking back at you. You're looking back at you. But with all of your mental afflictions, but you're them, you're looking back at you, and throwing everything back at you that you would be throwing at someone you were jealous of. This, to me, gets a little confusing. But it's, and you do the same with the competitiveness, and you do the same thing with pride. At the very end of the day, really, it is about putting your mental afflictions into it. So you're exchanging yourself, but you're directing all of the mental afflictions that you would be feeling for that person back at you, because you're now them looking at you with the same mental afflictions that you had for them.
Oh, so you're seeing your own mental afflictions.
You are. And you're acting out your own mental afflictions, but back towards you, over there. Got it? Yeah. Okay. Because it's when I first tried to meditate on this, I exchanged myself, and then I thought, but wait a minute. If I was higher, I'm now.
Yeah. That's where I'm going.
I'm now not higher. So why would I be feeling jealous? But but you know what I mean? It's like the mental afflictions that you would have for someone higher. You go and you flip it around and you feel it back at you. So the mental afflictions you would have if you were competitive, you go and you flip it around and you throw it back at you. The mental afflictions of pride, you go and you flip it around and you throw it back at you. And it's really interesting, because if the whole world acted that way, like if they gave you exactly what you're actually saying you want, like if you want to be the best at everything and thought of as the best, and if everyone just bowed down to you and kowtowed to you and stuff, it would start to feel really uncomfortable really fast, right? Because you would know that's not you, and like, what is this, right? Or the same thing if they were like, no, you should have everything, they should have nothing. Like, that's not going to feel very good. And yet, if you take these feelings to their nth degree, that is kind of what we're saying we want, you know? So this whole thing of putting your mental afflictions, or actually wearing your mental afflictions and looking at you through those consciously, through those eyes, as if those mental afflictions were looking back at you, that's the Dakshin Nyamje. That's the exchanging self and others part, okay? The other thing is to do the exchange self and others if you catch yourself in a mentally afflicted moment. Imagine if the whole world felt that. Like, exchange yourself that way. Like, what if the whole world were in this moment experiencing this same affliction as me and acting it out? Like, that would be kind of horrible. So it's that's another way of doing it too. Take your favorite mental affliction, pretend that everyone in the room has it towards you, and see how it feels like. Because that is actually what you're sending out when you have that mental affliction for somebody else. That's really what we're getting to. Is energetically, how does it feel to someone when you're having that energy towards them? Because sometimes we have these afflictions and we don't say anything, right? Or we try not, we don't think we're acting out, but at some level they're getting it. So the trick to curb that is to project that mental affliction outwardly back at you. Like, put yourself in someone else's shoes having that affliction towards you. And what does that feel like to you? Okay.
It's kind of like empathy, right? In a way, where you go, gee, I wouldn't want that for me, so why am I doing it to them?
Well, you get to empathy, and you get to compassion, and you get to bodhicitta by doing that.
Right.
But the actual doing that is Dakshin Nyamje. You're exchanging self and others. You're not feeling their disgust at you. You're not feeling their
no, I understand.
Right. So it's actually your afflictions that you're spinning around. You're turning the lens around back at you. But
it helps you get to the next step.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, because you don't want that to you, so you stop and you go, oh.
Yeah.
Okay. It takes you.
But it's the interesting thing about these meditations, and they're not comfortable. We're not actually doing the meditations. I'm only reading you the verse and explaining to you the process. The actual meditations are not comfortable, and it's good to not leapfrog over them right to, oh, I need to be more empathetic. I need to be more compassionate. Because if we don't do this exercise of turning our afflictions on ourselves, you don't get that visceral, like even talking about it, my stomach is kind of going, because it doesn't feel good, But it's a good place to go to really convince yourself that you don't want to do that. That's not, and that is where you're going to get to eventually. But if you leapfrog over it and just go, la la la, I'm going to be empathetic, then you might not have done the work, to really root out those mental afflictions. So those are the big three, right? Jealousy, competitiveness, and pride. I'm going to read you one more contemplation, and we'll move on to the secondary ones. This one should receive the honor, but not us. We should never get the things he always does. He should bask in praise, and we should be belittled. He should have all happiness, and we the suffering. We should be the ones who have to do all the work, and he should sit there in perfect leisure. Throughout the world, he should become a great man. We should stay inferior, and known as knowing nothing. What's the use of having no good qualities? We'll all strive that they have them all. There do exist those compared to whom this one is inferior. There are also those compared to whom we're highest. The state of our morality, views, troubles, and the rest is forced by affliction and not by choice. So Master Shantideva is really making sure we're clear on this, right? And we're getting into a few more topics. So this, I should get everything. Um, Especially as your practice gets better and people start giving you things and people start being like nicer to you and it's the fame and praise thing. We have to be careful to not let that get to our heads because it can be this thing where we feel we're more elevated than basically he's by these stanzas in this practice of exchanging self and others is not only warning us about the downfalls of where our ego can get us with our practice, but also just giving us things to look out for, right? So that was things in Tibetan. It's Nyepa. The next one he talks about is praise. These are the basic eight worldly thoughts, right? The things that we have to be careful of because the eight worldly thoughts are, you're happy when people speak highly of you, you're unhappy when they don't. You're happy when they praise you, you're unhappy when they criticize you. You're happy when you're famous, you're unhappy when you're not. Things like that, right? I think the other one is when you feel good and when you don't. They kind of relate to those without Master Shantideva specifically talking about it. There was this thing about bliss and getting all the praise, and then there's two types of bliss. There's bliss which is happiness, and then bliss which comes from not having to do anything for yourself, and fame. So these are all Tibetan words that are in the audio. So if you do listen, Geshe gives the Tibetan beautifully, and then he breaks it down per the vocabulary of it. But see, in that stanza, Master Shantideva is actually being sarcastic. He's trying to make a point. He's saying, what if all your fondest dreams came true? Which is what I kind of said before we did that contemplation. Like if everybody did act the way we secretly wish that we were the best at things and that we were the best liked and that, we were the ones being looked after. If the whole world did treat you that way, it would be kind of weird. And it would be uncomfortable. And he puts it in that stanza because he's kind of, it's kind of a double twist because he's being so literal that you're going to say, like, wait a minute, I don't want that. I never did ask for any of that. But he's trying to make us realize that if we unpack our deepest, darkest mental afflictions and took logic out of the equation, that is what we would be asking for. We would be asking for all the praise of the world. We would be asking for all the attention of the world. We would be asking for people to do things for us and that all the happiness comes to us, right? And that's the sort of nitty-gritty of the exchanging self and others. Oh my goodness, there's 6 more. Okay, I'm just going to read these, and we're not going to do them in contemplation so that you get the words. But if you are listening to the audio later, do the contemplations as Hector reads them out. The next one is, you must care for us by using all your strength, and we should too willingly take all suffering. Are we not, though, someone you should care for? Why is it that you belittle us so? What use would we ever have for the qualities that he has? And he is a being of qualities. He lives in the savage jaws of the lower births. He has no compassion for living beings. Even worse, his delusions that he possesses higher qualities pollutes the wise. It's agreed. So this is fast on the heels of the last one. The last stanza was really about how Master Shantideva says, don't kid yourself. This is actually how you're thinking. And this one is actually where others are looking at us and going, and they're looking at a bodhisattva. Like in this, it's a guide to a bodhisattva's way of life, right? Like Master Shantideva is already, has already set the ground rules that he's only speaking to bodhisattvas. So you've already agreed to be a servant of the world. You've already agreed to open your heart, and yet we're still stuck in these self-cherishing, mentally afflicted states. Now in this one, he's talking about others looking at you and seeing you for your true colors and saying, that's a bodhisattva, no thanks. You can keep that for yourself. Like those good qualities, don't want them. Don't need your jealousy, don't need your pride, don't need your competitiveness, like all of that. Because really, you, Mr. Bodhisattva or Miss Bodhisattva, just have your head between the jaws of death. And, you're just going to go to the lowest of hells. So keep your bodhisattvaness to yourself is really what that stanza is talking about. Okay? And then the bodhisattva watching out for yourself. No matter what, we must see to it that all the good qualities which we have are spoken all over the world. So we're still doing that thing. We must moreover assure that what good qualities he may happen to have are known to no one at all. Any faults that we must have must be hidden away. Offerings must be made to us, but not to him. We must gain with ease, and now the things we want, and we must win all honor, but not him. When something wrong befalls him, all of us will watch a long time, feeling a kind of joy. We'll assure that he becomes the laughing stock for everyone, derided in all circles. So this is still more about that. Like, we don't want to be like you, Bodhisattva, and although actually Geshe-la says you can take this in a way that how your mind should be thinking. Like, you should want your good qualities hidden. You should want your, like as a bodhisattva, you should be seeking the opposite. You shouldn't be seeking fame or gain or praise or all of that. You should actually be purposely not caring if nobody knows that you did anything great. And that, like the best giving is anonymous, that sort of thing. So that it is a twist, and literally it sounds pretty awful, but if you twist it again to how actually a bodhisattva wouldn't want any of the credit and wouldn't need any of those things, that's where we're getting to that empathy thing, Leonardo, that you were talking about, right? Like, if we see it right through enough, then we can get there. If you're a good bodhisattva, you really do want to be unknown, and you want everyone else to be famous, right? Because you're trying to lift everybody else up. You're trying to give everything away. So, yeah. If you had at some point in the past undertaken this very action, then it's completely impossible that you'd be living at this, something so opposite to the excellent bliss of Buddhahood. This is the same thing Master Shantideva said earlier, when he had the complaint about, oh no, I have been good, I have been kind, I'm not seeing anything special going on in my life. He's saying that if you had undertaken any of this, it's completely impossible that you would be living the way you are. So that's where this stanza goes in this reading. And then he goes on to say that the secret life of bodhisattvas, let me command myself to work for every purpose, acting as if I were the least of servants. He is by his very nature wrong. Refuse to praise him for some small accidental good. See to it that any qualities which he does have aren't detected by anyone at all. This refers to the fact that it's not that we're horrible all the time, but even when we do some good, that we shouldn't be praised because we might get a big head. So as to protect us from not getting anywhere near pride, forget about it. Don't talk about it. Like, that's what this one is saying, okay? Yeah. And you know what? The true good deeds of a bodhisattva are a secret. And as I said earlier, you gotta watch for it. I remember I did something recently where I purposely consciously did a good act, and I purposely consciously kept it anonymous. And oh my God, did that little demon want some attention. And I fought it and I won. I still to this day have not told anyone, other than saying that I did something. I haven't actually, to you guys, I haven't actually even told you what that was, and I'm not going to, but I have to say that there was more than one occasion immediately thereafter where I really wanted to say it was me, but I purposely didn't. And you know what? The struggle to not say it, I think, was the battle. Because the actual doing it was a no-brainer for me. It was easy. The pleasure I saw that was happening was wonderful. But the real test for me was battling that damn demon, because man, she wanted attention, you know? So the true good deeds of most bodhisattvas are secret. And that's a hard one. Mind you, my pride may be way more problematic than yours, so, but it's just giving you an example of something that I personally have experienced. The more it is that you take steps to do what you must in order to care for this, the body of yours, the more it is that the body descends to nothing more than a state in which it can't bear pain at all. And the fall is such that even if you were able to get everything that was desirable on the surface of this planet, it would never quench the desire. Who then is it that could act to give you all you want? When they cannot, then this desire brings on mental afflictions and a lessening of the thought. So what Master Shantideva is saying here is he's going back to that coal that we're grasping, that self-cherishing. The root of the self-cherishing is our body, our physical body. That's what he's saying in this one. You know, he's saying all these things we do to care for this body, this physical body of ours. Our body demands us to be selfish. Our very, very much of our daily activity of self-centeredness or self-cherishing is to protect and serve this, generally speaking, right? We work hard so that we can feed this body, that we can clothe this body. You know, we make sure that we go to the bathroom at the right time, that we get sleep at the right time, and we, you know, try to keep it looking as nice as possible. We, all of it is, see, in and of itself, none of those individual activities are right, wrong, or otherwise. But the fact that we do it for this body is wherein all the problems lie. Because it's really ironic. The more you take care of your body, the more you pamper it, the more you look after it, the whinier it's going to get, is what Geshe-la says. It's insatiable. This is actually part of being born in the desire realm. We actually have this inborn tendency to never be satisfied. It's one of the sufferings, right? Like, not one of the top 3 sufferings, but one of the wheel of life sufferings, where we have this sick and twisted capacity to always want more, and when we get it, it's never enough, and it only makes us want more still. And we have to stop that. We have to cut that tendency, right? So, but you know what that is? It's an ignorant thing. That's not understanding where things come from. It's not understanding what the true causes of happiness are. So basically, that's what this stanza is all about. And that's what the coal and the cherishing are. Because as soon as you understand that this has to go, right? It's going to go. It is all tied up in ignorance to be grasping to that. But if you think about it, if you look at the world, most people get themselves into trouble because this is what they're trying to protect, right? Be it their own body or their own house or their own country. It's all that physical stuff, that body, right, that they're trying to protect. And you know, this is the last stanza, but in your worship of this body, you've piled up many sufferings, all of it meaninglessly. What's the use of this thing, no better than a piece of wood? Why the love and hate? Regardless of whether I continue to care for the body or whether the vultures come to feed upon it, it has no feelings of attachment or anger. Why then is it that I have this attachment myself? So this is just meat. It's just a thing, right? It's not the body that's asking for anything. It's our minds. It's our desire. It's our feelings, right? It's our. In fact, it's not in this teaching, but in a lot of Buddhist teachings, they talk about the 5 heaps the skandhas, the samskaras, right? And you know, they actually separate body, feeling, discrimination. Like they actually remove these as parts that make up ourselves that cause us all our suffering, right? So the body's a big one. And this is where Master Shantideva brings us full circle, back to the beginning. This body of yours isn't asking for any of this stuff. The fact that we have any sort of self-cherishing, self-desire at all is because we decide to. It's a mental state, and we can change that. We can change that boundary. Your pain can be as intolerable to me as my own. Your happiness can be as important to me as my own. And that's really where we're trying to get to here. Because all of the rest of it is just silliness. And if we go to these extreme Dakshin Yamje contemplations, it really feels like, this is so weird. Like, I would never think like that. But it's getting to the underbelly of how we do think, like taking it to its extreme forms, right? To get us back to the fact that really the only way out is to care more for others than you even care for yourself, because that actually is the best way to care for yourself, and to forget the boundary that this body puts between you and others, because it's a false boundary. It's not a natural body, and it doesn't have to be like that. Basically, your idea of you has to be bigger than your body, and that will bring you happiness. So serving the body just doesn't work, and trying to take care of the self, Geshe-la says it's dysfunctional. So coming full circle, if you want something, start taking care of others. Start caring for them. If you really want to be happy, be smart about it and start looking after the happiness of others, because the opposite just doesn't work. And start small, right? And start doing it regularly. And with that, you will get everything you want. And that is a promise. That's a money back guarantee, actually. And all the things that you've dreamed of will happen. And so Geshe-la just says, just try it. Just try it, and it'll come. And that's class. I kind of sped through that last half hour because it was going to take another hour. Any questions? It's 8:54, so you've got time for questions. No prostrations at the end of the last class. You guys know this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always leave something undone. And next week is final debate practice, so you can bring all your questions, and this stuff is like actually really rich for debate, like all of this stuff, right?
Will there be 2 debate sessions, like one for classes 6 to 10 and then the other one for the final exam? Or
No,
is
it'll
it
just be all, so this will include 6 to 10
and
the final. Yeah. And that's a good question, but it'll just be the 2. So there will always be a midterm debate and then a final debate. So next week is the final debate. And then the week after that will be the start of ACI 12. And Lama John will be taking over Tuesday nights. And I'm going to be taking over Wednesday nights and teaching Book Jimpa, which is a advanced meditation series that was developed at Diamond Mountain. And this is going to be Book Jimpa 2, but it doesn't matter if you didn't take Book Jimpa 1. You can still, and we're doing it more as a drop-in. It's interesting because Book Jimpa classes originally, when they were originally given, were very structured and very strict, and with lots and lots of prerequisites, and you couldn't get into one without having completed the previous or without an interview with the teacher. We've relaxed that a bit only because we've been doing so much heavy-duty meditation training here that we feel that people who have the seeds to show up are coming to enhance their toolkit. And these Bokjimpa meditations are priceless tools to put in your toolkit. The Bokjimpa in Tibetan means to set your practice on fire, to add rocket fuel to your meditation practice. And most of the curriculum, there are actually 18, are there 15 or 18? We'll only be scratching the surface of Bokjimpas even over the next year, because so far I've actually only taught one, and this will be Bokjimpa 2, and then I think I'll be teaching Bokjimpa 3 in the fall. But we really progress through all of this stuff, and it really gets heavy into emptiness meditations, and it's really, really important that when you do emptiness meditations that you do a really solid compassion meditation at some point, usually first. So something like a Tonglen or a Lojong or one of these is really, really useful to know. But that's going to be starting up on Wednesday nights from April the 9th. And the first Bokjimpa 2 classes, there's only 9 classes, and there's no midterm breaks in meditation class, so we'll just go straight on through. But I encourage you all to please keep going with ACI, and if you have time, come in on Wednesdays. I know it's hard to carve out more than one night during the week, but it will be a really, really good. There's something really priceless about these. They were developed by Lama Christie originally to correspond to the ACI classes too, and the tantric classes that were going on, and the yoga teacher training that was going on. So there's something really beautiful about the weaving in. And because everyone here is so strong in the shamatha practices that have been going on, and the beautiful meditation classes that Doug Wienhoff has been teaching here, and the contemplations that you guys have all been doing in ACI, that if you do get the chance to drop in, please do. Meditation classes, I find, are actually something you do need to do in person. You can do them on Skype, but there's the energy is not as strong as if you're able to do it in person. So I invite you all to come if you can. And that will be starting from April the 9th on Wednesday nights. I think that's it. Anything else? Mark your calendars for July 10, 11, 12, Lama Marut coming for book tour, okay? Yeah, I think Sarah put the blast out today. Buki Jikshing Metok Tram Rirab Lingshing and De Gempadi Sange Shindu Mikte Uwargi Drokun Namdak Shingla Chupar Shok Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niratayami Giwati Kemugun Sunam Yashe Tsotsok Shin Sunam Yashe Lejanwe Dampa Kuni Toparsho. Thank you all. Thank you for hanging in there. Thank you.
Sherri, can you, for our benefit, just put like a deadline for us to complete the course so that it helps motivate us to finish it?
For ACI 11,
Yeah.
how long did it take you to finish ACI 10?
I don't know. I'm quite behind with this one,
Okay.
so I'm thinking, and I'm away for the first 2 weeks of April, so I'm thinking like sometime in May, mid-May or end of May.
How about end of May?
Okay,
May
31st?
31st.
Okay.
I don't want to write that down. I'm going to be done.
Do you want to make sure this thing...
Sorry.
Yeah, and I marked it.
Okay. Do I?
I have to give it back to you.
Okay, cool. You got any other pods?
You guys are amazing, though, that you